Scroll if you dare. Because what's about to hit your ears is not a rumor, not speculation, and not some internet fantasy you can laugh off. This is the instant a dynasty burned down in real time. The night Todd Tucker, hollow-eyed and unraveling, opened Instagram at 2 a.m. and detonated a truth he swore would die with him. My marriage was staged. In under a minute, the crowd poured in. In under 5, the world caught fire. Because Todd didn't come confused. He didn't come emotional. He didn't come guessing. He arrived armed. With screenshots. With timestamps. With private threads no one was ever meant to read. And then came the sentence that scorched the internet. Kandi and T.I had been entangled for half a decade, while he was still sleeping beside her. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't suspicion. This was discovery. Todd's voice splintered as he replayed the moment that ended everything. The door opening. The laughter dying. The silence screaming. 2 silhouettes. The woman he married and the man Tiny called family, standing frozen in a guilt so thick it stole the air from his lungs. And just when the audience thought the damage had peaked, he went deeper. Tiny didn't just find out. She was annihilated. One night, 2 households turned into graveyards. 2 vows burned into lies pronounced dead on arrival. This wasn't content. This wasn't spectacle. This was a man excoriating his own life in front of strangers while the internet watched his hands shake and his soul crack. Tonight this isn't a reveal. It's an autopsy. A marriage dissected in public. 2 futures cremated in silence. So take a breath while you still can. Because what Todd confessed next didn't just ruin lives. It rewrote everything. Strap in, because once you step inside this timeline there is no exit. What unfolded in Atlanta that night wasn't gossip. It wasn't tabloid noise. It was an emotional implosion powerful enough to fracture reputations, split families down the middle, and reduce 2 homes to rubble before sunrise. Todd Tucker didn't press go live to chase pity. He didn't appear to entertain. He showed up because his reality had shattered in one breath, and he could no longer carry the weight of a lie that had been quietly killing him. At exactly 2:03 a.m., a quiet alert cut through the night. Todd Tucker is live. Most people scrolled past it. Some assumed it was accidental. Others thought it meant nothing. But the instant his camera turned on, everything shifted. His face held no calm. The polish was gone. His eyes looked hollow, swollen like a man who had cried until there was nothing left to release. His breathing was ragged, shallow, the kind that belongs to someone whose chest has been split from the inside. Behind him was only darkness, the kind that suggests the lights stay off because truth is too heavy to face in color. Todd stared straight into the lens without blinking. Then his voice cracked open. I'm finished. The comments started racing. Hundreds turned into thousands. Thousands into a digital stampede. Something in the way he spoke told every viewer this wasn't a meltdown. This wasn't frustration. This was a detonation waiting to happen. He inhaled once, sharply, and then dropped the sentence that froze timelines worldwide. Kandi betrayed me, for 5 years. The internet erupted. No way. Stop lying. 5 years? But Todd didn't pause for reaction. He was already unraveling under the weight of what he'd lived through. I walked in on them, he said, dragging his hand down his face. I walked in on Kandi and T.I. There were no codes. No riddles. No soft language. He took the audience back to that night. He came home early, no heads up, no warning text, no reason except a gut feeling that something wasn't right. As he moved down that hallway he heard voices. Soft laughter. Closed laughter. The kind that didn't belong to him. He pushed the door open slowly. And there they were. Kandi, too close. T.I, leaning in. Both of them locked in place like the world had stalled on the worst frame imaginable. The silence slammed into him harder than any scream ever could. He didn't need an explanation. He didn't need a confession. I didn't even question it, Todd whispered. Their faces answered everything. His words fractured mid-sentence. The comments went feral. But he kept speaking like a man walking barefoot across wreckage. Then he lifted his phone on live. His hands shook so badly the screen blurred. Messages. Call logs. Images. Accounts nobody was ever supposed to see. This wasn't a slip, he said. This wasn't one bad choice. This was 5 years of deception. 5 years while I slept next to a stranger. And then came the moment that turned a brutal scandal into a full-scale catastrophe. Todd told the audience he wasn't the only casualty in this disaster. The second he found out the truth, he went straight to Tiny Harris. Not to expose her, not to embarrass her, but because he refused to let another person get blindsided the way he had. He called her, he told her everything, and then, he watched a woman break in real time. She didn't even speak, Todd murmured. She just folded. Like her whole soul gave out. Tiny had been fighting for her marriage with both hands. She had been defending T.I through storms that would have drowned most couples. And with one sentence, her entire world collapsed. 2 families obliterated. 2 marriages gutted. 2 partners betrayed by the people who vowed to protect them. Todd wiped his face again trying to keep himself steady, but the control snapped. Then came the confession he'd buried for years. I loved Kandi with a clean heart. A real heart. Everything I gave her came from a pure place. His jaw tightened. And the whole time, I was loving a lie. That line ripped through the live like electricity. Comments mutated into chaos. No way, Kandi, Todd didn't deserve this. Tiny OMG, please say this isn't true. But Todd wasn't finished. Not even close. He leaned forward until his face nearly filled the screen. His voice fell to a whisper that hit harder than any scream. I found things about Kandi, old situations, connections she hid, doubts I always had. And tonight, every single doubt got confirmed. His voice didn't sound angry. It sounded wounded, like a man realizing he had built a home with someone who wasn't even living in the same reality. But then he dropped the part that sent shockwaves across every timeline. Todd turned his head like he was checking something off camera, then said, "And Tiny, she knew pieces. And Kandi knew pieces about Tiny. They protected each other. They guarded each other's secrets. But me and Tiny? We were the ones left in the dark." The internet stopped. This wasn't one affair anymore. This was a network of hidden truths stitched together by silence. A loyalty circle that somehow excluded the very spouses who should have been protected first. Todd's voice grew thinner with every sentence, but he forced the truth out anyway. If I hadn't walked in, this would have stayed hidden. They weren't stopping. I wasn't a husband. I was, his breath caught. I was a prop. Something they kept around so the picture looked perfect. The live passed 180,000 viewers. Screens were recording nonstop. Gossip pages began posting midstream. Hashtags detonated. Hashtag Kandi exposed. Hashtag Tiny deserves better. Hashtag Todd spills. Hashtag internet on fire. But the moment that truly shattered the internet came at the very end. Todd leaned so close to the lens you could see the tears in his eyes. His voice was shredded, barely holding together. My marriage wasn't real. I gave everything. She gave nothing. Tonight, this all dies. And then, the screen froze. The live cut off. And the comment section erupted into pure hysteria. Within minutes, every major platform was on fire. Every T-page posted fragments. Every group chat exploded. Every fan who ever believed in that marriage started rewatching everything with new eyes. Todd hadn't just gone live. He had triggered a seismic collapse across the internet. People replayed his cracked voice. They paused on his silences. They examined the pain like evidence. And in the blackness behind him, viewers recognized it instantly, the atmosphere of a man whose life had been dismembered by the very two people he never imagined would form a line against him. The story didn't spread. It ignited. And by sunrise, Atlanta was no longer the same city it had been the night before. When Todd's stream cut out without warning, the quiet that followed was violent. Millions of screens glowed in dark bedrooms as people rewound the final seconds again and again. His whisper splintering, eyes glassy, voice unraveling. Tonight, this stops. No outro. No goodbye. Just vanishing into black. By the time daylight brushed the skyline, the world was already consumed. Headlines flooded every feed. Todd Tucker drops 5-year bombshell. Street corners buzzed with rumors. Blogs hit refresh every half minute. Influencers rushed to go live before rivals could beat them to the screen. And people who had never followed a single episode, never known the names, were suddenly glued to the rise and ruin of 2 marriages and 1 empire. But the real storm wasn't digital. It was personal. Because the second that live ended, the people inside this wreckage were already unraveling in silence. Word leaked that Kandi had been sleeping when it happened. Or pretending. Her team insisted she only found out when her phone exploded with missed calls. But a voice close to her dropped a different truth into the chaos. She always knew this moment would come. She just didn't know the hour. That line ignited suspicion. Suddenly the question wasn't whether Todd was honest, it was how long Kandi had been bracing herself. Had statements been written? Damage control planned? Was she mentally preparing for impact months in advance? And the unspoken horror hanging in the air was simple. If Todd uncovered messages, how many more were still buried? Meanwhile, the other side of this disaster went completely dark. T.I.'s world went silent. A man famous for explosive reactions vanished without a word. No statement. No denial. No meltdown. Nothing. And from someone who's always loud, silence feels like a confession. Whispers started flying. Some said he left town before the sun came up. Others swore he smashed his phone when he heard the replay. But the quote that froze the timeline came from someone inside his circle. He's afraid of whatever Todd has. This isn't just one wrong move. It's the whole story. Then there was Tiny. And her pain tore through the internet harder than any rumor. Sources claimed she collapsed where she stood after seeing the clip on her phone. Didn't even finish the video. Her hands shook so violently, someone had to pull the device away. And all she could whisper through tears was, "Not again. I can't survive this again." Her family circled her. But no comfort could touch this kind of devastation. She knew what was coming. She knew the truth wouldn't stop at one video. And she knew the betrayal wasn't from strangers. It was from the people she defended when the world turned ugly. The people she trusted when everyone else turned their backs. The people she protected when it cost her everything. By early afternoon, helicopters hovered above quiet neighborhoods. Cameras camped outside gates. Photographers waited on sidewalks like vultures. Atlanta had become a war zone of speculation. And in the middle of it all, Todd disappeared. No return live. No clarification. No explanation. Some feared he was being pressured behind the scenes. Others believed he was preparing a final release. Blogs bragged about leaked texts, hidden footage, private voice notes. Most were fake, but no one cared. The narrative was already larger than facts. Then came the turning point. A voice recording surfaced. Static. Muffled breathing. Two voices barely audible. One sounded like Kandi, the other like T.I. And one sentence rang through the noise like a blade. Did he find everything? That was all it took. Users slowed it down, enhanced it, compared it to past interviews. Authentic or not, the court of public opinion delivered a verdict anyway, and no legal team on earth could reverse it. Inside Kandi's camp, chaos erupted. Screens lit up. Lawyers stepped in. Advisors begged for silence. But silence had already decided her fate. Old clips resurfaced. Old interviews were dissected. Smiles from years ago were now viewed as evidence. And the most brutal shift of all? The fans. The same people who rode for her for over a decade were now demanding answers with a fury she had never faced before. As for T.I., people close to the situation said he was wearing a permanent groove into the floor of a lockdown studio, snapping at anyone who stepped too close, muttering curses under his breath like they were the only thing keeping him upright. Every second he stayed silent made the situation look worse. His publicist pushed him to talk. His attorney begged him not to. His family wanted answers. But no one could say for sure what he was preparing. Some swore he had material that could turn the entire story back on Todd. Others believed he was panicking, afraid Todd was sitting on more recordings. But the most chilling line came from someone standing too close to the fire. He's not even thinking about his marriage right now. He's terrified of what comes out if those messages surface. At the same time, Tiny disappeared behind a locked bedroom door. Friends knocked quietly, then desperately. No response. Just the sound of crying bleeding through the wood. Betrayal alone was savage, but the humiliation? The shame of watching her heartbreak become internet content, dissected and turned into spectacle by strangers? That's what ruptured her. And then she said something that stunned anyone who heard it. I should have walked away years ago. And just when it looked like the chaos had reached its peak, the floor dropped again. Another clip surfaced. Not audio. Not text. Video. The timestamp was smeared. The framing crooked. The lighting vague. But the figures? Undeniable. Two bodies. Close. Far too close. Faces hidden, but the damage done. The footage lit the internet on fire. Tags exploded. Influencers jumped live without hesitation. Reaction videos stormed social feeds so fast people couldn't refresh in time. Still no comment from Kandi. Still no word from T.I. Still no conference. No denial. The quiet transformed into something dangerous. By sunset, people from Todd's inner circle confirmed what changed everything. He hadn't gone live impulsively. Todd had been collecting proof. Not for hours. For weeks. He hit live because he reached the end of himself. Because carrying it had become unbearable. Because silence had started to feel like betrayal. One person said, he wasn't angry. He was empty. And empty people don't talk to punish. They talk because they've got nothing left to save. Then came the rumor that cracked the floor open further. Someone inside Kandi's circle allegedly revealed there were other secrets. Not just the affair. Old conversations between her and Tiny. Talks from years earlier. Messages about situations no one else knew. Decisions that suddenly felt calculated. This wasn't only about cheating anymore. It was about alliances. About loyalty. About protection given quietly and returned never. And now people weren't just side-eyeing Kandi. They were re-evaluating her bond with Tiny. A friendship built not just on history, but on silence. Todd's final line echoed everywhere. Tiny and me, we were the ones left behind. By nightfall, hashtags morphed into movements. Bloggers whispered lawsuits. Commentators predicted careers would fold. Viewers begged Todd to return live. But he stayed gone. And his absence felt heavier than his words. 2 homes in ruins. 2 families in shock. 2 legacies on the brink. All triggered by one night. One truth. One button. Whatever happened next would decide who survived it. When night fell again over Atlanta, something felt wrong. Not loud. Not chaotic. Just tight. Like the city itself was holding its breath. No one logged off. No one slept. Phones glowed at 2% with fingers hovering over refresh. Because the man who lit the fuse, Todd, had not returned. And silence like that isn't calming. It's a warning. Inside Kandi's home, the lights stayed low. Curtains locked tight. No visitors. No movement. Her team pleaded with her to say something. Anything. She wouldn't. She sat at the edge of her bed staring at her phone like it might explode in her hands. People close to her swore she hadn't cried. Not once. Just stared forward, jaw clenched, expression locked. As if waiting for the ground beneath her to cave in. That stillness scared everyone more than a breakdown ever could. Across town, Tiny sat collapsed into the couch, face buried in her palms, shuddering when her phone lit up again and again. She didn't answer anything. Didn't speak. Every alert was a new wound. Every tag another blow. Her family whispered around her carefully, like even sound might shatter her. She wasn't just heartbroken. She was exposed. Publicly dismantled. And then came the strangest sight of all. Sources said T.I never went home. He drove. No destination. No music. Windows down. Just breathing. The man known for standing his ground now didn't know what enemy to face first. His guilt, the truth, or the public tracking his every move. People claimed they spotted him idling in empty gas station lots, staring at the steering wheel unmoving. That wasn't fury. That was dread. At 11:47 p.m., everything shifted again. A new post hit social media. No caption, no context, no name. Just a 14-second clip. The video opened with Todd sitting in a dark room, the same darkness from his IG Live. His face barely visible, voice low, tired, and defeated. The only words he said were, "I warned them. I begged them." They didn't stop. The clip ended instantly. The internet imploded. People tried breaking down the audio, slowing it, analyzing breaths, looking for clues hidden in silence. Everyone asked the same question. Was this the beginning of another live, or was this the end of something much darker? Before anyone could process it, messages started circulating from someone claiming to be a former assistant. They said Todd had been collecting information for months. Not for revenge. For closure. Because the one thing he needed more than anything was the truth. Not excuses, not apologies, not PR lies. The truth. And he believed the only way to get it was to force everyone to confront what they'd spent 5 years hiding. Fans tried connecting the dots. Why did Todd wait so long? Why did he go live at 2 a.m.? Why did he vanish after it? Theories spread like gasoline catching fire. Some said he was scared. Others said he was ashamed. But the most haunting theory came from someone who claimed Todd wasn't hiding. He was deciding what to reveal next. And that's when the real chaos began. A private group chat surfaced. Screenshots showing conversations between anonymous numbers, dates blurred, names cropped out. But the implication was deadly. Lines like, "He can't find out. We'll control the timeline. Tiny can't ever see this." Whether the screenshots were real or fake didn't matter. The world believed them instantly. Panic spread through fandoms. Accounts got suspended. Influencers screamed on camera. News outlets called it the digital explosion no one expected. Then a new twist dropped, this time from someone close to Tiny. The message wasn't dramatic. It wasn't extreme. It was quiet, and that made it even stronger. She said Tiny had whispered one sentence through tears. "I trusted her with everything. Not him. Not them." People started rethinking the entire narrative. The betrayal wasn't just romantic. It was personal. A friendship destroyed from the inside. Suddenly the internet wasn't fighting over sides. It wasn't defending favorites. It wasn't arguing about guilt or innocence. It was collectively grieving the collapse of two relationships. One romantic, one platonic, that had survived for decades, until tonight. By dawn, another leak surfaced. A picture this time. Blurry. Dim. Shot from a door left half open. Two figures sitting close together, heads down, hands clasped. Not intimate. Not inappropriate. Just familiar. A familiarity that the internet dissected like surgeons. It didn't matter that the image didn't show anything explicit. The suggestion was enough. People didn't need details. They needed direction. And the image became the spark for a new explosion of theories. But then everything took an even darker turn. A person close to Todd finally broke their silence anonymously. They said Todd wasn't angry when he went live. He was shattered. He felt used. He felt invisible in his own home. He felt like every moment of his marriage had been rewritten behind his back. And the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It was the fact that he was the last to know. That everyone else seemed aware of the tension except him. He felt like the world had been laughing behind his back while he remained loyal without question. And then the truth behind his most painful line emerged. "My whole marriage was a lie." According to the source, Todd didn't mean the years he shared with Kandi were fake. He meant the foundation he believed in had cracks from the beginning. Cracks he ignored, cracks he explained away, cracks he assumed were normal. But once he saw what he saw, once he read what he read, those cracks turned into a collapse. Kandi's silence became its own villain. Tiny's tears became proof. T.I.'s vanishing act became guilt. And Todd's voice, shaking, breaking, collapsing, became the center of the storm everyone was trapped inside. By afternoon, something strange happened. Influencers stopped shouting. Commentators stopped analyzing. Even haters paused. Because a new realization swept across the internet. This wasn't drama. It wasn't gossip. It wasn't a storyline. This was destruction. Raw human destruction. And the final blow came not from Todd, not from Tiny, not from T.I, and not from Kandi. It came from a new anonymous post that simply said, "The truth isn't done yet." 3 minutes later, the account vanished. Phones buzzed. People sat frozen. Fans waited in silence so heavy it felt like the air itself stopped moving. Everyone sensed it. There was still something bigger coming. Something darker. Something that could flip the entire story. And Todd, the man who opened the door to this chaos, was still nowhere to be found. The world refreshed their screens, breath held, shaking fingers waiting, terrified and fascinated at the same time. Because whatever came next wouldn't just break the internet. It would break lives. The world is holding its breath tonight. Every timeline is frozen. Every notification sounds like a warning. Every refresh feels like the moment everything could break again. Todd's silence is louder than the lie that set this entire disaster on fire, and the people at the center of it can feel the ground shifting beneath them with every passing second. Kandi hasn't spoken. T.I hasn't appeared. Tiny hasn't stopped shaking. And the internet hasn't stopped demanding the truth. This isn't a scandal anymore. It's a collapse. Slow, haunting, suffocating. What happens next decides everything. Will Todd come back with the files people swear he's holding? Will Kandi finally break her silence before the narrative swallows her whole? Will T.I step forward or keep disappearing into the shadows? Will Tiny gather the strength to stand, or will this be the moment that fractures her for good? Every path leads to consequences and none of them are gentle. If you've watched this story unfold, if you've felt the weight of every confession, every tear, every unanswered question, then you already know this isn't ending cleanly. Something bigger is coming. Something heavier. Something that will force every person involved to face the truth they've been running from for years. And when it hits, it won't just expose secrets. It will rewrite reputations, destroy alliances, and drag buried memories into the light where no one can hide. Stay here. Stay locked in. Don't blink. Don't scroll away. The next chapter is already forming in the shadows, and when it drops, it will change the entire conversation. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and be ready for impact. Because this story isn't over. It's only getting darker, and you won't want to miss what comes next.